Hello and welcome back to our cottage garden. It's time for our June tour. The time's been going really quickly, but June is a lovely month, and as you can see today, really lovely weather, so we've been very lucky indeed, and we can't wait to show you around. We've got some surprising things to show you today. If you follow on Instagram, you may already know what I'm talking about, but otherwise do stay tuned because it's a kind of weird and wonderful thing that we have in the garden. But it's been quite a balanced month, I'd say. We've had a bit of rain, so everything's looking really lush and green. And June is a really beautiful time for that kind of new green growth, and it's all just looking really wonderful and coming along really nicely. One thing we've been keeping an eye on this month is the wildlife pond, and I can't remember now whether we're in year 2 or 3, but I feel that the wildlife pond has got a really lovely balance at the moment. And perhaps about 3 years ago, it was really out of balance. I think it had got a sort of overgrowth of nutrients from the leaves that fall and decompose in the water, and that meant we had loads and loads of duckweed. And this year we do have a bit, and it is spreading, but it's more on balance. There are gaps and there's some duckweed. It's definitely not smothering it as it has done in the past, and that tends to be the way with the wildlife pond. Some of the plants that we look at as being bad are actually good in moderation, like most things. So I'm really pleased with it. We've got a nice marginal shelf with some pond plants, and those are kind of putting on gradual growth. They're all quite new, and the one I'm the most invested in, of course, is my water lily, which is a variety called Shady Lady because it's in dappled shade. And I keep checking on it, and I'm really pleased with the growth that it's done already, because I put it in and it was tiny little bundle of roots. I didn't even expect a single leaf off it, to be honest. So it's okay, it still looks very young, but something I've wanted to grow for years, and to see it all settle into shape is really amazing. In terms of the wildlife itself in the wildlife pond, there's still a lot of activity, especially in the beetles, the water skaters, and the water boatmen, those sorts of things. We've got plenty of dragonflies and damselflies now as well. One's just landed next to me. Lots of the red ones this year. And we have been watching the dragonfly larvae leave the pond now that it's warmer, and they settle on a leaf and shed their kind of skin, and a dragonfly emerges, and it will sit on the leaf for a day to unravel and metamorphosize, I suppose. And it's quite a weird thing to watch, but really amazing. So we've got the emperor dragonflies, which we've seen the most of. We had about 3 of those leaving the pond last week. The newts have also been leaving the pond, which means the breeding season has finished, so they stay in there over spring to breed and lay eggs, and then over the summer we notice them leaving, and we'll start finding them around the garden in kind of damp and dark places like under rocks. We do notice them on the edge of the house quite a lot, and I think they like the kind of warmth and the stone of the cottage. So we do have to be careful that we don't stand on them, especially if we're out here walking around in the evenings. And there are still a few in there. It's not an entirely black and white thing, but they do start to leave about this time of year. The other pond plants that are looking really good at the moment are the ones that have self-seeded. So the advice that I was given for setting up the pond was to not over-engineer it and to let some things self-seed as well. And we've had water parsley and purple loosestrife arrive through self-seeding, and both of which are looking really lovely. The water parsley has got some tiny flowers on, and the purple loosestrife is just getting quite tall and leggy and getting ready to flower. So it's been a really generous thing, and part of the sort of transitions that you notice throughout the year as you lean into the timing of the garden. You start to anticipate all of the movements of different creatures and plants, and it's a very lovely thing, makes you feel very settled and grounded. So a really lovely month so far. This video is sponsored by Jackery, and today we're using the Jackery Explorer 1000 V2 to power our camera gear between filming. Essentially, this is a really powerful and portable power station, and it has 1,500 watts of power, which is 50% more than the previous generation, and it's smaller in size. So it's perfect if you're camping, gardening, or traveling. To give you an idea of the kinds of power that the power station holds, we'd be able to charge our camera 47 times, It can also charge a projector for 8 hours, so perfect if you're going camping and want a nice cozy setup. Or if you're also a videographer, you could charge a drone 25 times. If you're using the Jackery Explorer for gardening, you could power a 1100 watt mower for 1.4 hours. So there's enough power in there that you can get all of your gardening jobs done from one charge. It's a really versatile power station, so you can charge it from an AC wall outlet, or you can charge it from the car, or even using solar panels. So it's perfect for camping and being outdoors. If you're charging it from the wall using an AC outlet, it takes 2 hours, but if you're finding that you're really pushed for time, you can tell the power station to go into emergency charging mode and it will be able to charge up fully in under an hour. The noise levels of the power station are really quiet. So right now I'm charging off a USB port and I can't hear anything, and if you use the AC ports it goes up to 22 decibels, so it's a quiet hum but nothing that will be distracting, and you definitely won't be able to hear it while we're making this video. In terms of outputs, we've got 2 AC outputs, 2 USB-Cs and 1 USB-A, so you can charge a variety of different things on here at the same time. For us this will be things like camera gear, our microphones and potentially our phones at the same time, and I'll be able to use this to charge my gardening tools, which is going to be really handy if I'm working at the top of the garden and I don't have access to power. The Jackery Explorer has a 10-year lifespan, and on purchase you can choose a warranty of either 3 or 5 years. It will be able to do 4,000 charge cycles at 70% capacity, so it's a long-term investment and should be lasting for years to come. Depending on what your needs are and how you're working, there are different modes of charging. So there's fast charging, emergency charging and whisper quiet charging, and this will depend on the noise levels you want to tolerate or whether you want to get something charged really quickly. You can see we're using this outside, so it's really important that it's safe for outdoor use, and so it's been made to IEC 60068 standards, meaning it's fine to use while out and about. It's also fire resistant casing, so there's no need to worry about fire risk. You can control the Explorer from the Jackery Smart app, which allows you to see the power remaining on the power station, what you're charging and what these outputs and inputs are, and also you can control the light and the screen on the power station from your phone too. In the garden, I use lots of power tools that need recharging constantly, particularly if I'm doing high intensity things like trimming hedges, trimming the grass. So I'm really looking forward to using this when I'm at the top of the garden and I don't have power. I can take all of my chargers up there with me and it will make my flow so much less interrupted. I think it's going to be really handy. And of course, we're going to take it with us when we're traveling to make sure we've got all of our camera gear charged up as well. So I think it's going to be a really good investment. And thank you Jackery for sponsoring this video. This is something that feels really exciting to us, but I realised that you are watching from all over the world, and so it might be something that's really normal and potentially even native to your area. So please do let me know if you're familiar with this plant, but our blue agave is going to flower, and for us that feels like a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing to witness, definitely to grow in our own gardens. And it's something that we didn't really expect. So we inherited these agaves when we moved in. We love this greenhouse and we probably would use it for something else, but the size of the agaves was so impressive, it would have been really silly and wasteful to remove them, and a lot of effort. They are very sharp. Even when I've tried to tidy them up, I've often been spiked. But they're incredible things, and this flower is a once in a lifetime for the plant because it's known as a death flower, and so once the plant's about 20 to 30 years old, it will send up this huge flower. The flower will disperse seeds everywhere and then the plant will die, which is what's happening now. And this should reach between 6 and 8 meters, we've been told. So as you can see, we've taken the glass out of the greenhouse roof to try and accommodate the size. And I don't know if we've been foolish in doing this, because it's going to get really big, really heavy, really woody. And so obviously there's a risk that if we have bad weather, it could be blown over, it could smash the top of the greenhouse. Even just trying to remove it post-flowering might be really difficult. We might end up doing some damage to the greenhouse. But was something that we both felt like we really wanted to see, and it feels really special. So we're willing to take the risk, but keep your fingers crossed that we don't end up damaging the greenhouse. So it should take a month or two for it to finish flowering. So I'm thinking maybe by the July garden tour, this might be starting to put its flowers on. It's going to grow really, really tall, really quickly, about 20 centimetres a day of growth, and then it's going to go outwards and put on kind of these yellowy floret type flowers. But it should be a real sort of spectacle. We've never seen anything like this, and I don't know anyone that's grown one to this point where it's been able to flower. I know a lot of people local to us grow them as house plants in small pots, which constrict the size a bit. So it's really amazing and just completely unexpected. And we were really, really excited when we first noticed the flower starting to grow. And because it grows about 20 centimetres a day, in those early days when it's in the greenhouse, you can really see the difference. And you'll be pottering around out here for a few hours and you'll go in there and notice that there's been some really sudden and big growth. So that is really, really exciting. We think the agaves were planted about 2 owners ago, so about 14 years. And then we think when they were planted, they were perhaps 5 or 6 years old, so making them about 20 years old. That's just a guess, we're not experts. So if you happen to know loads about agaves, please do let us know, because it's quite mysterious and we would love to know more about it. But that would be about right, puts it about 20 years old, and then within that 20 to 30 years of age when they start to flower. I expect that as this plant dies, once it's finished flowering, the neighbouring agaves will very quickly pad out the space. At the moment they're a bit overcrowded. Over the years it has sent out runners and then popped up another plant, and I've been taking these out, putting them in pots, giving them to friends and family, but the ones that have stayed in have formed a massive tangle, and I think they will be grateful for a bit of extra space. It might not even look like there's much of a difference once that one has finished and been removed. The others will quickly fill the space, and to be fair, the others in there are almost the same size, so it could even be that within the next 5 years we have to go through this again. Now that we're in June, we're transitioning into thinking about growing food and moving away from growing flowers so much. So I thought I would show you this patch here, which is a happy jumble of things, technically a polyculture if you want to be scientific about it. But the idea is that there's kind of resilience in diversity. And so we have things here like kales, some salads, a squash, other things in the brassica family. So I can't remember whether this is sprouts or a cauliflower or a cabbage. I really do just jumble things up and forget what I've put where. And nasturtiums as well. And the only thing I've got in here that isn't edible is this clover plant, but it will be beneficial to the mix because it will fix nitrogen in the soil. And you'll see already that on this Cavolo Nero there is a sort of aphid infestation on the flowers, but I've just left this alone and ladybird larvae have come in and are eating them now. So it really is good to let a bit of the kind of pests come in, and then the pest controls will move in as well. And we love ladybirds, and it's great to see that kind of natural balance. I've had a hard time keeping the ducks off this though, as you can imagine. They love lettuces and salads, so I have been watching this with a close eye when I've got the ducks up here. The nasturtiums are planted as a kind of sacrificial plant, with the idea being that they're appealing to the same pests as the brassicas are. Doesn't look like they have had any interaction from pests at all, but you can actually eat these, so you can use the leaves in a salad, and then once the flowers have gone to seed, you can pickle the seeds in a similar way to capers as well. So there's lots we can do with this area, but one thing I wanted to show you while we're at this time of the year is how I'm making my homemade plant food. So I have a big patch of comfrey at the top of the garden, and it's got tiny little fine hairs that can be quite scratchy, so I'm going to put gloves on to show you. But comfrey is an amazing plant because it's really good for the bees, and you can make homemade plant food with it. So this grows really quickly, and the flowers refill with nectar in a really remarkable time as well. And there's so many flowers per plant. It's really generous for the bees. And once you've cut it down, it regrows so quickly. It's a great plant to have. So cut down a bunch of comfrey. And then the other thing I put in are nettles. And basically the balance of this is the nettles will give us nitrogen, and the comfrey will give us potassium. And the nitrogen is really good for the leafy growth of the plants, so good to put lots of nettles in when you're in spring and you're trying to get a good structure on the plants. And then the potassium is really good for fruiting, ripening and flowering. So as we're moving into summer, I'll do maybe about 2/3 comfrey and 1/3 nettle, whereas in spring it will be the other way around, so 2/3 nettle and 1/3 comfrey. And I will stuff as many of these as I can into a Hessian sack like this, just crunch them up and mush them, push them into the bottom of the bag and keep going until this is really full. Just keep pressing them so you can get a nice amount in. And then once this is full, tie it with some biodegradable twine and then submerge it in a water butt. And this will break down over a couple of weeks and you'll know it's ready because it will be a bit smelly. And I've come to learn the balance of how much to water down the kind of homemade feed just based on how much it smells. So if you've made homemade comfrey fertiliser before, you'll know it really stinks, especially if you make it from concentrate and don't add any water. And when you make it from concentrate, you end up with this really stinky kind of thick liquid that you add water to break it down until it doesn't smell quite as bad. In the water butt, because of the rain, it kind of waters itself down, usually at the right amount, so I don't normally need to add any extra water unless it's been particularly dry, but I've just come to learn what the right sort of smell is, and if it's a little bit fresh then it can go straight onto the plants, whereas if it's a bit more pungent then I will water it down with some tap water as well. This doesn't give us a complete picture for plant nutrients, but it's a pretty good one. The only thing we are lacking is phosphorus. We will get a bit of phosphorus through our compost that we make from duck waste, but it probably isn't enough, so that's one thing I'll bring in just to complete the picture. But it's a decent enough balance, and it's amazing to be able to do something like this and have more of a closed loop system and not need many things and bring things in, particularly with the nettles, because nettles grow in areas that are really overly rich in nitrogen. So by cutting them down, you're taking that out of the soil and moving it into somewhere where the plants and soil want the nitrogen. So you're not only feeding your plants, but you're also helping the balance in that initial patch of soil that was too nutrient dense. So it's a kind of amazing way to work with the plants in the garden and then ultimately have some lovely, happy, healthy food to eat as well. So that's the way that we feed our plants, particularly hungry things like tomatoes and cucumbers that we've got in the polytunnel. This area is quite easy, it's really lovely soil, but it does get a feed every now and again. But I will show you what we are growing in the polytunnel so that you can see the rest of our food. A quick look at the polytunnel for you because I've planted up about 3/4 of it now. So we've got various annual crops in here. At the front we've got some golden berries which are new to me, plenty of tomatoes, probably about 8 different varieties at this point, cucumbers tied to the strings here, a squash that I'm going to climb on the trellis, French beans dotted around, and some courgettes, basil, and various brassicas that I didn't have space for out in the garden, so I've moved those in. I've mulched the soil with a few different things, so we've got homemade compost that I made with our duck waste, grass cuttings, and a chop and drop of any overwintered crops and weeds as well, mostly because I'm lazy, but it is actually really good to make a mulch out of the existing plants. There's an amazing ecosystem in here. You can see there's wasps, bees, flies, all taking care of the smaller things like aphids, so we leave the doors open and then the kind of natural pest controls can come in and keep it all in balance. and it's looking really good. We only had 2 cherries, unfortunately, but they were really, really tasty. I must admit, I do feel a little bit behind. My tomatoes are kind of smaller than what I would like for mid-June, but they are catching up, and I'm sure they'll be fine. It's just sometimes it does make you feel a little bit behind, and I've still got a quarter of the thing to plant up. I'm just waiting to harvest the broad beans, which will be any day now. So it's in a good place. I'd like it to catch up a little bit, but feeling quite pleased overall, and we've got a lovely mix of edible crops in here. Thought I would talk to you a bit about our mowing plan this year. You might be able to spot around me that we're not mowing loads, particularly in the mini meadow in front of me. And I'm kind of doing a gradient this year. So the 2 lawns closest to the house, we are mowing because that's where we sit and the dogs use it and the ducks use it. So it's kind of a practical thing. And then this area we do mow, but less religiously than we do with the first bits of the garden. And when I walk around up here, I feel that I really love the daisies and the buttercups and the clovers particularly. And when I can see them flowering, I just really don't want to mow. There is not too much pressure in this area because the things like clover don't grow as tall as the grasses. I think to some people this would look messy, but I've learned to really, really love it. And I don't want to mow. I used to feel with doing No Mow May and mowing less that I would look at the grass and feel uncomfortable and that it was messy, and now I have a complete perspective change. And even on this mini meadow in front of me, in the past I would have mown that when summer comes around, but I think it looks really stunning, and clover is one of my favourite plants and I love the flowers, and I think it's beautiful. So I'd encourage you to try mowing less if you're interested in growing wildflowers. And you can see the bees are really, really happy. It gives them kind of a corridor where they can pollinate not just the borders, but all of the lawn as well. So continuing the gradient to the top of the garden, I don't mow the top at all. Just once a year clear the ivy and the brambles and things that might become more sort of permanently in the way. And that's a really rich kind of grass meadow. It's got a few taprooty things like comfrey, there's vetch and lots of grasses, cow parsley, and so it's kind of a different landscape to down here where you get the smaller things like daisies and buttercups. And this kind of area is less useful for habitat, whereas the top of the garden will be more useful for habitat because I'm not mowing at all. So things like caterpillars and grasshoppers. In an area where you do mow, they are at risk of being mowed basically, so they're safer at the top. But even in just mowing this area less, the flowers will still provide amazing food for the pollinators, and the perennial kind of wildflowers will be given more of a chance to get established. So it's something I've really enjoyed playing around with. And I do think it's really amazing, the kind of power to change your perception when you change your habits. And go against the grain of what you're taught in the kind of mainstream gardening knowledge, which is things have to be tidy and controlled and done in particular ways with particular types of monocultures, and that's not only is that not true, but it's actually really good if you do the opposite of that and embrace kind of chaos. And I selective weed a little bit, so if things pop up in here that are getting in the way of my plants, I will pull them out. But at the moment I'm just observing the kind of beautiful chaos of the natural lawn. And even things now like the docks that are in front of me, I see them in a completely different way, and I see them as tall, kind of statuesque, beautiful things instead of a weed. They were one that I really didn't like seeing before, along with the dandelions. But I think it's just such a good thing to do. I feel way more relaxed now. I used to feel a lot of stress about keeping the lawn looking tidy, but actually it just feels exciting and I kind of love the chaos of it. And there's particular patches that are longer than others, and up there's loads of clover and buttercups, and it looks absolutely beautiful as the sun sets, and it's one of those things where the petals go really shimmery in the lower light, and it is lovely, definitely my style, and I'd encourage you to try a bit of kind of wild chaos as well. And I have introduced a few clover plugs into the lower parts of the garden that I mow, because I think this will give us a kind of bit of strength against the leather jackets that have been eating the grass down there. Given that we're so close to the pond, there is an ecosystem down there where we do get leather jackets in the lawn, and so I thought perhaps by introducing some clover we'll be able to weather that a little bit better, where they won't eat the clover, and hopefully that will spread in place of the grass that gets eaten. So that is my kind of plan with it, but I hope you enjoy seeing some of the wildflowers and the things that we consider weeds as more beautiful. In the borders, we've got some lovely summer perennials and roses appearing. So we've got the Nepeta next to me, that's always a lovely easy one. We've got a few roses, so there's some David Austin roses. There is Lakeland, I believe one of them is, and Queen of Sweden. We've also got Campanula, and the Clematis Blue Angel is looking really beautiful. What else do we have? Geraniums, and the asters that we added last year are going absolutely bananas, and I'm a bit worried that they're going to take over, so I'm going to let them flower, figure out what variety it is. I'm anticipating it might be Pink Cloud, but I'm not sure because this is only my second year of growing asters. And then we will go from there, but it's a nice thing to be able to have lots of to share. But for year 2, I am astounded by how much those have spread. I think they really love this soil, is really, really rich, and it gets a nice leaf mulch in the autumn. So they're definitely happy, but I might need to do a little bit of controlling for those. But it's lovely. June is a gorgeous time of year. I think in these borders there's enough plants, but they're still small, so it does look a bit gappy, but I don't necessarily want to bring in more plants. I just want to look after these until they fill the space, because I think it might look quite chaotic if I try and add anything else. And I am looking forward to them getting a bit more established and being able to look at it and kind of know what each thing is, rather than having a kind of 15 centimetre by 15 centimetre plant. But it's all a work in progress, and each year I'm a little bit more pleased with how it's coming along, and I hope you've enjoyed having a look around today. Please do remember to subscribe if you like the videos, and we will see you again in July, hopefully with a huge agave flower to share as well.